It's a great opportunity, and of course, for the first time, I'm coming to your such a huge university uh, in its size, uh, and of course, I think it will grow in terms of its content and form. Uh, thank you so much, Anchal, for inviting me, and I'm sure that I'll do. At the last moment, of course, I was trying to grapple with the issue. What shall I speak when he asked me to speak on federalism? So somehow, I was grappling with this whole issue of how India is to uh, tackle the kind of conflicts which is going on around, in the country, various kinds of conflicts because of different kinds of diversity that Professor Mehra has talked about in terms of it's a mosaic. So how to handle this kind of situation? Is it can political science do something about it, or can political theory can do something about it, or maybe some comparative politics can do about handling this kind of how the diversity can be managed. So I just told to Chanchal that I would be talking about asymmetrical federalism, but I'm afraid that the kind of things which I want to say doesn't fit in this session, in a sense that it is this, that inter-regional and intra-regional asymmetry has been talked about a lot, which is of course is a territorial kind of asymmetry. For example, 370 that he has talked about, or maybe a lot of other. You have some state asymmetry, like Union Territory itself is a kind of an asymmetry. So that's a territorial aspect. My focus would be in terms of how how justice can be met in a society, which would be more. It would go along with the whole idea of how diversity can stay together. So that is the question. I mean, how diversity can be managed. So the issue of justice is very important in terms of managing the diversity, managing different kinds of cultural groups, and of course the question of political stability is also important. That by managing diversity, the territories need to be stable, or the nation needs to be stable. Is it possible in a plural society? So therefore, we need to think in terms of how we design the institutions. Comparativists basically have thought about that, that homogeneity is very much near to political stability. If homogeneity is there, then you have political stability, otherwise it's a problem. But nowadays, in fact, the idea of consociational democracy by Aaron Lipchart, basically is focusing on the issue of how we can sort of manage the diversity by coming up with, the political arrangement in consociational democracy should be like, a grand coalition where you have segmental autonomy, where you have representation with, in fact, even minority veto. So these are some of the ways in which comparativists are tackling the whole issue, and therefore they are talking about, in a sense, that asymmetrical federalism is needed for managing the diversity. And they keep on insisting the appropriateness of asymmetrical federalism. When we look from a political theory perspective, political theory perspective immediately talks about the liberal individual political theory, and one of the proponents, Chandran Kukathas, basically talks about that. Liberal individualism is a way in which we can manage different kinds of society, or different kinds of people, different cultures within the society. What he says that of course that you have liberal individualism as individualism is there, which gives the moral primacy to the individual against the claim of some collective. So it is very individualism. Individual is getting moral privacy. He also says that not only just individualism, but also it is egalitarian, because he confers the same moral status to all the individuals. Doesn't and the difference of political or social order doesn't have any upper hand or upper moral status. So egalitarian in a sense that it confers the same moral status to the individuals, and of course there is a universalism also, because there is some way in which liberal individualism tries to unify. There is some kind of a moral unity within which the polity should be governed. Now, but this liberal individualism was challenged by those people who were saying that that the major cultural aspect, because individuals are the bearers of culture also, as much as they are the bearers of rights. So the cultural aspect doesn't figure in this kind of understanding, and of course the homogeneity and individualism needs to be questioned. What the liberal individualism talks about, or maybe the comparativists, what they talk about, that homogeneity brings about political stability. So therefore, there's a challenge, and there's a whole range of philosophers, political scientists who have challenged this whole idea of liberal individualism by bringing in the idea of that there are cultural groups which needs to be accommodated, or there are cultural groups in a pluralistic society, in a deeply, let's say, I generally do not use this word divided society, but in a deeply, let's say, variegated kind of a society where you have different kinds of cultures coexisting together. So how that is possible? Is it liberal individualism has a capacity to accommodate all these cultural and cultural groups, or it doesn't have a capacity? So they have an answer. They say that no, it doesn't have a capacity, and therefore so the theory must move beyond the liberal individualism. And you have Wilke, you have Tully, you have I mean, there's a whole range of writers who are talking about in terms of the expansion of the liberal individualism by accommodating the larger sections of or maybe the minority nationalities of the society. So, and one of the ways, so therefore this asymmetrical federalism becomes as a means, or perhaps as a tool to sort of manage this kind of diversity. And it has generated, in fact, it has generated a whole lot of heated arguments as far as one sees in terms of the territorial asymmetry and then the territorial asymmetry and the plurinational asymmetry. In fact, a lot of writers have started talking in the sense that every society, particularly in terms of Canada, that every society has different plurinationalities. So the normative perspective, what I'm trying to say is that the normative imperative that is required, I mean, how do we justify that yes, we need to have asymmetrical federalism and asymmetrical federalism must have certain kind of normative pillars or some normative imperatives. And from where do we get this idea that how do we accommodate these different kinds of cultural groups into the larger polity? So three largely, in fact, I have the abstract also I mentioned. There are three largely there are three imperatives, normative imperatives or normative pillars, which would help in justifying the whole idea of asymmetrical federalism for managing the conflicts and the tensions, or for managing the diversity. And those are, one of course is very known understanding of the communitarian conception of good. So the communitarians have come up with this whole idea that liberal individualism perhaps would not be able to solve the problem. So it is the communitarian perspective which is going to solve the problem. So one vantage point is communitarian conception of good. The second one is how do we elaborate on the idea of equality. So there has to be some kind of a refinement in the classical idea of equality amongst citizens. And that, of course, would be to make a distinction between, how individuals need to be treated in a federal society. And the third, which is, of course, is very important imperative for having asymmetrical federalism is that how do we deepen democracy, and how do we sort of enlarge the democratic settings? Is it through deliberative democracy, or the engagement of different kinds of cultural groups in a more, let's say, agonistic fashion? How do they deliberate, and what should be the language in which they should deliberate? And therefore, of course, having some kind of allegiance and faith to the democratic institutions and democratic settings to begin with. But yes, I mean, before I can elaborate on these three pillars, the understanding that I have in my mind about the asymmetrical federalism is about, you know, what Linz talked about, holding together, right? Not just bringing together or coming together, but holding together. You know, that's how do you see? So I mean, the idea of mono-national federal societies, which is largely territorial, which you'll find it in the US, etc., Australia perhaps, you see, they rather deal with the issue of degree more than of a kind, which means that they bring together political units that were apart in a single body politics. So that is their idea, territorial or mono-national, which is not substantially traversed by the cultural pluralism. So you'll see, I mean, most of these societies, the cultural pluralism doesn't traverse across the whole society or nation. And therefore, it is the whole debate of mono-national federal societies is linked with the size, or maybe the relative economies or political influence, and so on and so forth. Plurinational, you see, it's not my word. I mean, a plurinational federation is now, a lot of people are using it. And, but what intrigues, you know, apart from multicultural or multinational, what intrigues me in plurinational is that, you know, you use the word national, which means that there are many nationalities which exist within the nation. So that is what the whole understanding is. So there can be a majority nationalism, or there can be a majority nation within the larger nation. There can be a minority nation, or different nations which exist within the larger nation. You know, particularly it has been said in Canada, Quebec and Canada, different nations perhaps existing, but I mean, one can say this about India, that yes, of course, we have different kinds of nationalities, such huge and such diverse that, of course, and there is such a big difference in terms of the cultural traditions and cultural markers. So, plurinational federation, it focuses on competing conceptions of good life, right? Because after all, how to competing conception of good life per se, and reconsideration of political identity in the whole community. So there's this effort in the plurinational federation to reconsider the whole political identity. In plurinational federation, you know, what is observed that the majority nationalism is always focusing towards symmetry, whereas minority nationalism is focusing towards asymmetry. So there is a kind of a contestation everywhere. You know, I mean, all federal societies, we see that the nature of holding together is as such that there erupts certain kind of fault lines where you see that the minority nationals they argue for some kind of special treatment, or they argue for some kind of special status within the larger territorial group. So they focus more on asymmetry, and majority nationalities in fact they focus more on the symmetrical aspect of symmetry. And the other aspect in plurinational federation is that that, you know, there is a political arrangement, in fact, constitutionally entrenched federal character of the state that we see. You know, they are constitutionally entrenched. Of course, the division of power, sharing of power, central and regional governments, you know, but the states, right? States may be formed on the basis of linguistic or regional basis. So, religion or linguistic, you know, they most of these territories, they have a dissimilar relationship with the central government. So the asymmetry arises in the dissimilarity in terms of relationship to the central government. Maybe it's jurisdiction, it's institutions, or maybe it's laws. So this is what is the de jure asymmetrical federalism, how the constitution pronounced. But actually, you see, it is not the territory. My supposition is not the territory which governs the federal society, but the relationship of people within the territory. And it's like inter-regional and intra-regional. The moment you think of how people are integrating. So therefore, this is what is asymmetrical federalism. Now let me just quickly come to my my major argument. These three pillars, which is basically 5 minutes. So one is, what has to be, how do we forge communities? How do you bring communities together? This is holding together, how do we bring communities together? Now, bringing communities together, of course, we have to see in terms of groups, not individuals, right? Now, the moment when we talk in terms of groups, so the importance of communities comes in social life, culture, identity, heritage, right? So, the ways in which communities can be held together, what some of the Will Kivlicka and James Terry they are talking about is that group largely, you see, group shapes an individual, right? Group shapes an individual, and individual is one way or the other part of one group, or the other group shapes the individual, right? But individual also has his own rationale, his own understanding of the social life. So a group shaping up an individual, but individual breaking from the group, but largely taking into consideration the larger understanding of the community. Now this is what James Terry talks it as thin communitarianism, right? Whereas there's another way in which the group basically determines the moral values and determines the markers of and the values of that particular, or the culture of that particular group. And individual is for an individual it is difficult to move out from the group. This is what is the thin communitarianism. So there is a distinction between thin communitarianism and thin communitarianism. And of course, what the solution to this is, not either thick communitarianism or thin communitarianism, but the solution is that there has to be federal pluralism, and federal pluralism perhaps what can help in terms of forging the communities. The second imperative is how do we address the inequality, which is of course asymmetrical federalism. Does it take into account that everybody is equal and therefore everybody must be getting the equal treatment? Is it helpful in forging the communities, or is it helpful in bringing people together, or some kind of equitable treatment? So the question of equity is paramount in asymmetrical federalism. Of course we think in terms of citizen equal. We are citizen equal in a sense that we have the same kind of dignity, we have the same kind of respect, right? But suppose one is deprived of the basic constitutional rights and basic constitutional freedom, then that person is a citizen minus, right? So therefore the idea is that how we bring to the citizen equal, and to bring to citizen equal there has to be citizen plus, right? And citizen plus means equitable treatment, not identical treatment, but equitable treatment. And citizen plus perhaps is only possible if we have citizen plural. So the question on citizenship is also very paramount in terms of addressing inequality. How do we address inequality? And how legitimacy is derived in a divided society in a federal country. The third is of course about how do we affirm and deepen democratic principles. Now, the idea to deepen democratic principle is of course that we need to have a democratic citizenship, right? So the question of citizenship is very paramount in upholding the democratic institutions and principles, and therefore in decision-making process, accommodating differences and addressing the democratic legitimacy. So democratic citizenship is very important, and I mean the whole, federalism by asymmetrical federalism is very much inherent, in the very notion of federalism, right? Why I'm saying this is because you see an individual, now has different kinds of allegiance and different kinds of loyalties, right? For example, towards my culture and towards the other cultures, right? Or towards my state or towards the center. So therefore, you have different kind of allegiance and multiple loyalties. In fact, you have multiple loyalties, and this perhaps, if we take this into account, the local, the local sovereignty is very important. The local sovereignty always challenges the central authority. So the local sovereignty is for freedom, and the central authority is there for coercion. So therefore there is this coercion and contestation goes on between local and the center, and that is what defines it as asymmetrical federalism, and that is perhaps what can bring in terms of participatory model. So now I think I would conclude on three. I mean, three things which perhaps is very important for having this asymmetrical federalism in terms of how to manage and to also have justice. Managing one way is by what unitarists they do, right? By force, by violence, by etc. But how do you manage with justice is the real question. And therein three principles I think is very important. Of course, the democratic, I think this is the democratic principle which seeks responsive government, widespread political participation and sensitivity towards citizenship through its diverse allegiances. The second principle is the communitarian principle which aims at maintaining culture to ensure historical continuity and equity. And the third one is the liberal principle which speaks the language of equality and of course liberty. So thank you so much.